And Jared is very happy today because we are on his... I forgot. What pick is this for you? This
3.
is your third. This was your third favorite movie of all time.
Yep, number 3. We're almost done with our top 10s.
Oh, wow. That is...
And what do you think of it, Dickey?
Jared, this movie awful.
It is not awful.
Awful is not the word I was expecting.
I guess awful is not the... No, it's a little slow. It's a little boring. But
At what point did you want to dip?
About an hour and a half in, 2 hours.
Ooh, you made it longer than Andrea did.
But we'll get into it. We'll get into it. Jared, please lead us in. What is your third favorite movie of all time?
It is Gettysburg, a 1993 Civil War movie financed by Ted Turner. Was originally going to be a TNT miniseries, and then was turned into a movie after they had finished filming because they thought it had potential in the theaters. Did okay in the theaters. Made a ton broadcast and physical. Used in a lot of classrooms. It's very... So you saw it already?
Yes. I did not think I saw this. I haven't seen I thought this.
I thought this. I know my rights. I know the law.
Wow, my brain really.
Let me guess. Yes. So it wasn't the whole thing. It was like bits and pieces.
I'm pretty sure I watched the whole thing. We spent a whole week.
I'm pretty sure he probably fell asleep.
Oh, I wasn't paying attention at all.
So at one part you're like, I've seen this.
No, not one part. As soon as it opened, I'm like, this looks familiar.
It doesn't help that it opens like every documentary you've ever seen ever in your life.
That is true.
Like, that's not a thing that is a knock at it. It just does.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm saying. I see. Whatever year we did Civil War, that was like 7th or 8th grade, I think.
Yeah, and it's perfect for the classroom because of the TV thing that they filmed with. You can't show excessive violence. Mm-hmm. So that's why it's perfect for classrooms. Because there's not excessive gore, which people outside of the historical community will get all, but the historical people, like as Jake and I did a bunch of video research on, no one really had a problem with that. They're like, it was a gruesome war, but it's like, that's the movie has certain limitations and it doesn't hurt.
Sit at a sky level view and look at something objectively, like there are, like you said, as a Civil War person, you can look at it objectively and say, there's people here, there's people here. Like, this is terrible, but, like, the best way to portray it is just to portray it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a movie that there's a lot to pick apart and a lot to talk about. I
can tell you that I watched it on Wednesday.
Wednesday.
And
Did you actually do this in one sitting?
Yeah.
See? I didn't pause it once.
Oh my God.
I did pause it a couple of times because I had to pee, but
I didn't have to. I just went
much
through the whole thing.
I'm much older than you, though.
True.
How much water did you drink? Enough water that day?
I had a big glass with me. Like, I try to have a glass of water when I watch stuff, just because you're watching, you're not getting up to hydrate. So I drank the whole thing.
Yeah.
And
Do you need some water now?
No, I got pop.
Oh.
But I didn't feel like it, and
that's impressive.
I don't think. Now, I say this, I don't think I've ever done that before, because in the past, if you don't have the Blu-ray, you have to put in another tape or flip the DVD. That's how big the file is. Blu-ray, it's a Blu-ray, but it can hold way more. So, and I think since having the Blu-ray, I've watched it a couple times, but you pause to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Answer your phone, check the score.
Yeah,
whatever game that's on.
I'm pretty sure I broke this up into 4 parts.
Yeah, which, I mean, I don't think they've ever said. I think in the stuff we watched, they said we're not really sure how it was supposed to be broken up, if it was by day or if it was more than that.
That's interesting. I would be because
yeah.
I don't want to jump too far on your spiel, but I know you said this was made for TNT, so I'm curious as to where.
Yeah, I know where one cut is easily, and it's after the charge at Little Round Top, because it's Jeff Daniels walking toward the camera and it fades out.
Yeah,
that's the intermission for theaters, and when you flip the disc and change the tape, because it's like what is it? Like 3 hours is the first half, and then like an hour and a half is the second half. Pickett's charge like an hour and a half, something like that.
I had a little bit of an anxiety attack at the intermission, because the only other movies that I've seen with like a legit intermission where it says intermission is Dr. Zhivago,
yep.
And Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah. Have you never seen
both,
Bing Bang?
No.
I was going to say, I've seen a ton of movies that have an intermission.
And both of those go for like 12 minutes.
because they have like full accompaniments, and whereas this it just fades out and then just comes back in to, I think, Longstreet at the hospital. So it's not quite the end of day two. Like there's still more on the second day before we change, but I think that the most gruesome part of the whole movie is he walks past a wagon full of limbs, and it's real quick because it's like you can get away with that. But I didn't remember, like they dump and they added Foley of like the sound. I go, okay, that's a little gross. Could have been much bloodier. You know, it could have been a lot.
Wasn't there a dude laying on the ground and you could see the stump of his leg, but it
Something
was like
that.
You could see where it was like either not real or they put something on his leg to make it seem more smooth or something, or it was like an actual amputee that they just put like fake blood on.
It's one of
like,
those you kind of like look close, like it.
Yeah, I was like, what is that even supposed to look like? I tell you this. I'll keep going.
Yeah. So Jake had a lot of questions, and I'm not going into that part. And I think one of them was like, I'm trying to figure out where childhood Jared just wanted to sit down and watch this.
I'm thinking the same thing, Jared. I knew you were probably going to get into this.
Yeah.
What I'm about to ask you.
Why?
What about this movie?
Let me kind of answer that. I think Jared's family is very smart. They like things like this. Like,
I mean, just
like today, I spoilers. I gave Jared this cool copy of it.
Yeah, we'll show it.
It's a collector's edition of the thing. It has a bunch of paraphernalia about the movie, and I have never seen his dad quite so giddy, except for maybe when he beats your mother in putt-putt golf.
Yep.
Well, isn't your dad like a history?
No,
he's in.
So
history?
He's a teacher, but not a history.
Okay.
Yeah. So for context, my dad is a sociology teacher. He has two master's degrees. He almost was a history teacher. At a certain point late, or somewhere in the middle, he had to make a choice, sociology or history, and according to him, there were way more historians than sociologists, so there were more jobs for sociology. So he went that route because he enjoyed both equally. So he's had a ton of history classes back then. He almost had a doctorate. Dang. He was a thesis away from it, but he got his current job. Finish. Yeah, I know. But
that makes sense as to why.
So he's
Gettysburg.
So
kind of thing
and he's one of the most well-read people I've ever met. Mm-hmm. He has a big collection of books. He's constantly he probably reads 30 to 50 books a year because he's constantly learning. He is constantly improving his classes, constantly learning. Like he
used to take courses, not even towards anything, just to
he still audits. He'll audit
a class.
Yeah, he'll take a class or audit a class just to learn. Like he got his master's degree. It took him like 20 years because he did it slowly, just because he was more concerned about classes and knowledge than a degree. And then he's like, oh, I guess I got my master's degree. I was like, that's pretty cool. Then he's like, I'm going to take another class. I go, another one? His other degree's in theology, some kind of theology degree. So
it makes complete sense that this would be
and he has instilled his love of history on me. As a kid, he just showed me stuff he liked, and we watch it and talk about stuff. A couple years ago, the big inspiration for Gettysburg is Ken Burns' The Civil War documentary, which is a hugely influential piece of media in terms of documentary filmmaking, in terms of just historical documentaries and movies, and just in Civil War historians and reenactors. Like everyone talks about that as like the big turning point for media, for Civil War media. And my dad and I watched it together, not one sitting. That's like 10 episodes. It's very long because it's supposed to be watched in episodes. And we one summer just went through it because I own it. Went through it episode to episode here and there, and it's great. It like people often will call Ken Burns' style dry, and I think the problem is we live in an age where documentaries have to be big and flashy or have like dramatic reenactments in there that often are very bad.
Netflix. Sorry, go on.
So his approach is very simple. There's a ton of information. It's a lot of like still images that you just slow zoom into or you're moving through, and
There's
you have
a reason iMovie calls that the Ken Burns effect.
Yeah.
Yep. And
I was
then
gonna say that. So that sounds like what the Community episode was.
Yep, Pillows and Blankets, right? Yep, and you have there's a narrator, then you have interviews, and then he'll use celebrity voices to read things people wrote, like the Civil War. You have I think like Jason Robards. I can't remember, like some real historical figure. He reads like his letter out loud and say the name. Like, it's a specific style. If it's not your thing, I get it. If you interpret it as dry, that's fine. It's a very textbook heavy approach. I appreciate that. And the people he brings on for interviews usually are very smart, of course, but like very good interviewees. So it's something that if you're not into it, it's not going to do anything for you. Yeah. Which is what this movie is as well. It's for a very specific group, and it's Civil War buffs, history buffs, and the like. Like, it's that crowd of people. When you said
that Ken Burns is like very textbook heavy, that's exactly how I felt about this movie.
Yep.
And I can understand like how it's your thing. Obviously, it's just not
mine. Which I knew it. I started it, and as the first day started, like I think by the time Harrison gets to the camp in the first 5 minutes of the actual movie, I remember thinking like, oh yeah, he's not gonna like this. It's a lot of information. It's a lot of names that you have no idea who these people are outside of like Robert E. Lee.
Yeah, I knew Robert E.
Yep, and. Right. It's one of those, I know most of them just from the movie, and then at the end of the movie, I looked up a bunch of them and read about them, and it's like, that's what the movie is for as well. It's, if you don't know who these people are, the movie's not going to hold your hand.
No.
I like that. That's what, because when we watch the things we'll get into, they talk about how it will age better in that regard because it's not spending so much time explaining it to you. It's, you have to go out and research these people.
Did I watch it earlier? I liken it to a war movie I watched, I think earlier this year or earlier in 2023 or later in 2022. The Longest Day. Like, it doesn't add a lot of like what we would know as like Americanized drama. Like, there's no love interest. There's 3 women in this movie,
and one has lines, and it's in one scene. And in the director's cut, there's an extended sequence of townspeople. But when you look at like, why would we have more women in this movie when the townspeople are not in it? Because it's focused on the people in the army.
The director did not Pearl Harbor this.
Because we as Americans for some reason have to have, and I mentioned like I don't feel like this movie's melodramatic and said I don't know about that, and while certain shots and scenes can be, I think like overall it's not super melodramatic.
I don't think so. I think I watched this I don't remember watching this in high school or middle school or anything like that. Watching it for the first time, I think I felt that because
watch it for the first time right now.
Yes.
Okay.
I felt that, but I also think that I felt a lot of that lost cause propaganda type of thing, like you were talking about. Like, it's easy to feel that way, and I think that's where a lot of the melodrama comes in, is because Martin Sheen is very like, but then like if you don't like consider the weight of what General Lee had to carry just as a person, whether it was a good thing or a bad thing, which it definitely was a bad thing. Talking, those videos we watched, we'll talk about, like you said, like definitively this is bad, but like the weight of what he was doing, and like you just gotta wonder if some of the upper echelon of like people in moments in history like that are doing bad things, but doing it in the name of someone or something that they believe in, know that it's bad.
No. That's at least my answer to that question. Is I think that they think what they're doing is right.
I think in this scenario probably would be the answer, but I
it's more complicated.
Yeah.
And what I said to you was
the movie is just a lot to digest, and like initial reaction coming out of it is like there's a lot of time spent with the South and like humanizing them, but it doesn't really feel like humanizing them. Like there's this whole sequence that is an improv. That's the word I was looking for earlier, where they're chasing, not chasing, but the soldiers are surrounding General Lee, and they're chanting his name, and it's like, are we glorifying this person that was leading this army for the right to impose its will upon people? Why are we doing that?
I don't think he was glorifying it. It was just portraying how they thought it actually happened. Because it feels because like I feel like I could have seen any other filmmaker that actually take a stance on like this was like saying that this was bad, where I felt like this was just. And again, I go back to the word Jared used, textbooky. It's very just matter of fact, plainly. This is what happened. This is what these people would have said. This is what would have. That's how I interpret it.
I could hear you starting to respond because I want to clarify on what he brought up.
Go ahead.
Martin Sheen was riding to the shot, and it just impromptu. The extras just started cheering and shouting Sheen. They were cheering him. So there's a shot Jake brought up off camera.
They didn't actually do that.
Yeah, they were chanting. Like it was like respecting him, kind of like Sheen, you know what I mean? And they surrounded him, so they quick turned the cameras around and of course the close-ups are added in after they realized, let's use this, and they dubbed the Lee over the Sheen, but which you have to.
Yeah.
But and Jake brought up there's a moment where he looks a little scared, and you could tell it's probably Martin Sheen wondering what the heck's going on. But also Jake brought up, it also kind of adds this extra layer of not planned out, kind of this like he's about to send most of these guys to their death.
And
so
he
there's
knows
this,
it. Like there's no way he doesn't know it.
100%.
And they probably know it too, but we can get to it later. Still trying to finish the initial spiel, but there's this following that is just so
brainwashed? Are you talking
there's
about that?
a certain it's a fervent. They're very fervent, very. It's just so passionate about it that's why they're kind of blinded. And there's more layers to it, and it all comes down to this movie. People who look at it and on surface level call it just Southern propaganda, Southern lost cause propaganda. It's way more complicated of a movie than that. Not a sequel. That's a separate thing too. And
there's no sequel to this?
We'll get it. Like that, but that's the thing. I think people dismiss it before actually talking about it because there's layers to this. It's not perfect. There's plenty of stuff to talk about in that regard.
We're from the North. People always want to just boil it down to this was right, this was wrong. And I don't think it obviously was this is right and this is wrong, but there's so much more to how how do I want to say it? How it's portrayed to the people to kind of get them to believe a certain way.
Yeah. So, like 7-year-old me is shown parts of this movie by my dad because he's always been a big history fan. He loves looking at battle scenes in movies, and it's really funny because nowadays they're so gruesome and trying to be more realistic. He doesn't like that. It's because he likes focusing on the tactics and the history of it more than the gore. Like it's not like gore is fun in certain movies because some movies, that's the point. But like, you know what I mean. So he has loved this movie since it came out because he loves looking at the history of it. He likes hearing about it. But of course, he's more about like let's get to the little round top sequence, which is probably the best part of the movie.
Agreed. It is actually probably the best part.
And so that's where he's coming from. So as a child, I had seen this movie in its entirety multiple times. I could not tell you if it was in one sitting. I couldn't and it's stuck with me through the year, over 20 years. And the actual VHS copy is this right here. This is the two. It's got 2 tapes, of course.
Ooh, what's that advertisement?
That's the part 1 thing that has come off the tape because it's old. My late grandfather, my mother's dad, big VHS collection. This was in his collection, and this is the one whenever we wanted to watch Gettysburg, which was like a full, I remember there are times we watched it all the way through because it'd be like Saturday afternoon or in the summer or something. My dad's like, I'd say like, I want to watch Gettysburg, and my dad'd be like, okay, let's drive over to Grandpa's house. We drive to the other side of town. He'd talk with him for a second. I'm just like waiting to get this. Hand it to me. He's like, yeah, there you go. And we bring it home. We'd watch it. We'd rewind it, and then we'd watch it.
Your grandpa was not a be kind person?
He probably was But maybe he didn't ever get this out. Like it was us who would always borrow it and just be full.
How long would it take to rewind 4 hours?
Well, I mean, it's 2 tapes.
I mean,
that's right. That's
probably
right.
about 3-4 minutes.
But so like
maybe,
this is
depending on the speed.
This is the actual tape I first watched it on then. Because then when he passed in 2017, I inherited his collection and went through it. And that's, of course, I saw it. I'm like, yeah, I'd keep that. Not only one of my favorite movies, this is like the copy that I first watched. And so just as a kid, I remember sitting there on those afternoons just waiting for the battle sequences. Wait. Like, so, and again, you can show it to a 7-year-old. They're not going to get everything, but it's not like scarring.
Only like 2 scenes or 3 scenes with any sort of blood in them.
And again, the blood isn't very
bloody. Because again, it's supposed to be 1993 American TV.
Yeah, it definitely gives.
I forget which one it was, but one of the generals on the Union side got shot in the back of the head or something.
I think
and you didn't see blood. You didn't see anything.
It's Reynolds. It's the first day.
No. It was during the tour. Maybe it was on the southern side. I distinctly remember he gets shot and it's like around his head. He falls off the horse, and then when they're holding him,
they see it on that's Reynolds.
Okay,
that's the first day because he's riding. You see the sharpshooter against the tree. For God's sakes, forward. Then he falls down. The guy and it's the pulling back shot. They're all around. He's dead because you can see it on the white gloves, right? Yep. So. Yeah, so that's the connection with my childhood. Just when you have a very, very smart, big history buff dad who has a movie he loves and wants to show his son that isn't scarring.
Oh yeah,
well,
of course we'd watch it all the time.
Like we've been saying, it just shows the battle. Like
it's the tactical side. In the human parts of it are just when they're talking to each other about things back home or before the war and stuff like that. It's a very ground level approach, and I think that's where the value in it is.
I agree.
So if you guys can see this other VHS copy, and it's the same thing, but just it's separated into 2 hard cases, and you can tell.
The YouTube, so you can check out all those awesome
stuff. And you can see like it's clearly this cut up, and then the tape's put in here, and on the back it has the library for my community college. There was one day where, because I went to it's the community college where my dad teaches, and we were leaving, and there's a free table. It's teachers or students will put books and stuff on this table near where the offices are. You can grab it. I've gotten a couple things like that. One of them is a novelized version of a play script of that championship season, which is a movie I really like, and it's not very long. It's funny. It's 3 acts, but it's like the books like that. So like that's cool stuff to find. And this was sitting on there one day, and I'm like, yeah, I'll grab that. It's the same thing, but it's kind of just cool. Like, yeah, I picked this up at my.
I was gonna say it looks like
school.
It came straight from the library.
Yeah, it does.
Sticker. It's got the sticker.
Oh yeah.
I wonder if it has.
Also, that white case.
Oh, yep.
It would be funny if it didn't have the VHS tapes and he just never checked.
That would be really funny.
or it was the wrong VHS, like it was Titanic or something.
That would be funny.
It would almost be a better story.
There's no way I could hold these and there not be a tape in here. These cases are not heavy at all.
I'm talking about more about if it was the wrong tape.
That would have been really funny.
Yeah, so the right tapes are in there. Wait, are they rewound? I wonder.
Probably not.
Yes.
They are?
That makes sense. So like this would be, it's in the library, no one's checked it out, and who knows how long.
I haven't taken a VHS tape out from a library in a hot 30 years.
Literally, yeah.
So yeah, that's the cool story there. So I can remember like Chamberlain in that shot again walks toward the camera, it fades out, and that's when you take the tape out and you put the second one in while you rewind the first one, or you're supposed to.
You know what else the style of, like, just from what I understand about the book, I've not read the books, but just from what I understood, like the style of storytelling, it's very James Michener.
Yeah, that's the guy who did like the State books, right?
Yeah, the
like
Centennial
Hawaii
series.
Yeah.
Space. He writes these grand epics that he takes a state and it's false fiction. What's the word for it?
Historical fiction.
It's historical fiction where he'll write the origin of a state up until present day, and these books are like
they're big.
Chunkers. My
Interesting.
dad's favorite person.
A lot of people, older generations, primarily. Mm-hmm. I've seen there's a movie version of Hawaii that has Max von Sydow and Julie Andrews. The movie's okay, but it's a section of the book and not the whole thing. And it's still like a 2.5 hour movie.
Didn't they make
3 hour
like a bicentennial movie based on that book?
Based on Hawaii?
No. Based on the bicentennial.
I don't know. I think there's a TV 2-part movie on Texas that's based off of his as well. And I own the tape that also came from my grandfather. I've not watched the movie. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, and I have, if we're wanting, the Gettysburg is based off of a book by Michael Shara called The Killer Angels. And I have read The Killer Angels. I have the books right here. I bought the trilogy a couple years ago. I've read The Killer Angels. I've not read the other two, are Gods and Generals and The Last Full Measure, which were both written by Jeff Shara, his son. But I've only read The Killer Angels so far. It's funny, it's the shortest one of the three.
So is that each day is what I'm to assume?
It is split up by who is who's the main character of the section.
So it bounces between characters, okay.
Yeah, it bounces between characters. See if I think every chapter.
See that?
Yeah, so it will go to chapter, but this is chapter 2 of Chamberlain, but not chapter 2 of the book in total, because it's how many times we cut back and forth.
That makes me wonder if, as a series, it was gonna focus on specific characters per episode, and then you'd see them in other episodes and be like, "Oh, this is where this connects."
I feel like that would make sense.
If it was gonna progress like that, because it sort of feels like that.
I feel like that's a good way to also just set up and weave together a TV show.
But that might have also been kind of new for 1993, like that way of thinking about it.
Yeah,
I feel like miniseries back in the day often, if not super long, right, it's like 2 or 3 parts. Because if it's longer than that because it's supposed to be, you premiere a part nights in succession. Mm-hmm. Think like an earlier, The Blue and the Gray, I think is a 3-part Civil War miniseries on TV. I think North and South might also be a couple. I don't know how long North and South. I know The Blue and the Gray, which I hear a lot of historians say is not super accurate, whereas a lot of historians laud Gettysburg for its historical accuracy. It's not perfect, but there's a lot of stuff. And then also there's maps in the book that kind of show you where people are maneuvering.
That would have been kind of helpful in the movie.
1,000%.
To just show a map that they were referring to.
Yeah. So the way I'll explain this best I can, just it's kind of like Spark Notes version of the whole battle. Mm-hmm. So it was 2 years into the war or whatever this is now, because it's 63, I believe. The Confederacy is winning because they have been fighting a defensive battle on their home turf. Mm-hmm. And they've gotten incredibly lucky. They also have better officers, because where West Point is, and a lot of them defected to the South. And Robert E. Lee is a very, very, very good tactician and general and leader. The South has the better officers. They are fighting in the South, and luck.
Yeah, helps too.
So at this point, they have built this army that not only is just completely taken by Lee, they're in love with this guy, basically. This guy is like a god on earth, Gods and Generals, which that's not what that stands for. So you have that, and then you have this arrogance about them because they keep winning when they shouldn't. They are constantly outnumbered, and they are constantly, if they can't win head-on fights, but they're somehow slipping out of them because they know the terrain, and they're winning. That's why this deep into the war's gone on much longer than they thought it was. They thought it would, and they just keep winning. So there's this confidence they have, which feeds into later in the battle. So Lee has decided to invade the North. So he has moved his army up into Pennsylvania. His goal is to get to Washington. The peace letter thing in the opening narration is not real. Yeah. That never happened. Okay. But it's kind of can't even say a ticking time bomb because it's never brought up really.
Well, it's also kind of it feels like manufactured. Once you learn that it's not real, it feels like manufactured drama.
It's supposed to there's supposed to add a sense of urgency of he wants to defeat the Union by the 4th.
Yo, I remember he kept saying this is the last day of the battle. This is the last day.
This may be the last day. So the whole point is he gets into Pennsylvania. He doesn't realize the Army of the Potomac has moved quickly up. They've just made, I believe it's George Meade, the commander of all forces. They've just put him in charge, and they have caught up to them in Pennsylvania. And that's why, because the cavalry guy, Jeb Stuart, was not doing his job. So when Harrison the spy sees them, they're all like, what? What do you mean they're up here? Like, yeah, they're right. They're a couple miles away. Oh. So that's the build up to it. So Buford's cavalry moves into the town and tries to hold them off long enough for Reynolds to get there with that first, I think it's the First Corps. I can't remember what corps it is. The whole point is to keep them engaged there so then the rest of the army can catch up and move into the hills, the good ground. It's all about ground, if you didn't notice.
High ground, baby.
Yeah, so the whole point of the battle
was right.
So the whole point is, shut up. We don't need to talk about Star Wars in every single episode.
I mean, that's all I could think about as they were talking about it.
So,
sorry, go on.
So the whole point is he dismounts his cavalry and he just holds off Heath long enough to have Reynolds get there and the rest of the army to move into the hills. Now Heath was not supposed to engage. Lee told him, "Do not fight until the whole army's here." But he thought it was local militia, and then he thought, "Oh, it's just dismounted cavalry." And then that corps gets there and it changes everything. So they end up holding off long enough for the army to get the rest of the Army of Potomac get up there. Then they vacate the town and go into the hills. So the Confederacy moves through the town, and that's where they set up. So they're in that fish hook. So day one is setting up the next 2 days. So then they're in the fish hook. They try getting the flank. The whole thing of they didn't take that empty hill when they could have is real, and that did play a part in this because there's that whole scene with the guy who narrates is the same guy who plays Trimble, who is we could have taken the hill. And I said, give me one.
Is Trimble the one that asked for a new assignment?
This is the scene. It's like, give me one regiment.
Couldn't take the hill.
And he said nothing. I said, give me one brigade, and I will take the. And he said nothing. I threw my hat down into the damn dirt.
To be fair to him, can you imagine the commander of your army saying, "Hey, take that hill if it becomes advantageous."
Yep.
Or whatever he said.
Yeah. And he's like, I sure thought so. And because he's building the frustration, and he's saying all we had to do was just. And he's like, and now tomorrow, many a good boy will die trying to take that hill. Mm-hmm. And that's why he requests a different assignment. He doesn't get it technically, but that was that whole thing. So the Union is entrenched up there, and Longstreet is trying to tell Lee, they're right there. Let's just get between them and Washington and go on the defensive again because that's what's working. And, of course, in the movie, Lee's like, but the enemy is here. After what they have done today, I will not tell this army to turn around and retreat. No, sir. Because of that confidence and that arrogance and just this feeling that they're invincible, he thought he could smash them, just scatter them, and then go to Washington and end the war. That's what his mindset is, and that's why he thinks on the third day, when they can't break through on the second day, they almost did. I think one of the Union divisions went out down. I think that's Devil's Den or the Peach Orchard. The Peach Orchard. They left their spot. They were not supposed to. They went out, and that could have completely destroyed them. But they held out. And then, of course, Little Round Top is the flank. That's just a piece of the puzzle, but it is a pretty significant one. Chamberlain's not even the only one who ordered a bayonet charge in the whole fish hook, but that's like the big one. But it's like they hold, and then the third day they try it. They think they're weak in the center, where this is like our big grand march over there again. And of course, it fails miserably. Yeah, and that's what makes them retreat back into their own territory, and it is the turning point of the war. And I know that's a pretty lengthy Spark Notes, but any engagement in any war is going to be dense.
Battle in particularly as a Spark Notes sort of thing, because
people make studying this their literal profession. So I think you can spend a little more time if
you really want. Yeah, and I hope I explained it correctly, because again, there's people who know way more, and they'll be like, maybe that's not right. But that's what I have from watching this movie and reading the book and reading about this battle. Like it's basically, this is the turn of the tide. Mm-hmm. And
showed this out. They weren't invincible.
Yeah, because then you have the moment of, it's my fault. This whole thing is my fault. And that's why they're, no. Come on, let's hit him again. I know we can get him.
Brainwashed.
It's this whole, almost a cult of personality. Have you ever heard that phrase before?
Yeah, that sounds a little familiar.
So the whole thing is that they're just so convinced and so for what they're doing that they think they can just run straight at him and win because they've been beating him this whole time. But then that's kind of their big. They were humbled, let's say, that day. So that's a big moment. So that's kind of what the movie is looking to cover, like this. Because the high water mark of the South is near those trees that they were looking at. Like, that's what's considered. It's kind of up for debate amongst historians, but the movie's kind of trying to show, like, this is like the peak of this, and it all comes crashing down. And to kind of capture everything we will or are saying about that, the movie's point is to humanize and show that there's more to it than just right and wrong, when right and wrong is the big thing. I mean, the problem becomes in the way it's executed can be interpreted in that kind of lost cause way, and that is a negative thing of like, okay, they don't push back hard enough, and in result, people might get the wrong impression from this.
This movie really requires context of what was happening at the time to understand what it's trying to, like, and I mean like minutely understand what was happening at the time to really fully get something out of it.
And at the time when the movie is being made, because this is like the height of Civil War reenactors.
Yeah,
didn't that
guy say that this was like the turn of like kind of, this is where people started getting super interested in?
Well,
reenactors are not.
I saw they filmed this on the actual.
Just about everything is on location. Not all of it's in the same spots, because there's modernization that gets in the way.
It's in Virginia, though. They filmed the part of it over there. Didn't it, at the end?
Why Virginia? Do you know where Gettysburg is?
Isn't it in Virginia?
No.
Okay, let's break this down. Let's break this down. Not only did I repeatedly say Pennsylvania, not only is this a known fact, I literally said he invaded the North. Where was Virginia?
I guess that's in the South.
What is Lee's army called?
Okay, let's be fair to Dickey.
No.
Let's be fair to Dickey.
No.
They were screaming Virginia a lot in this.
They were always.
But that was because Virginia was the heart of the South.
That's where the capital was for a bit or a while, because I think they abandoned Richmond at one point. I could be wrong. I can't remember. But there's also the fact that Lee's, because the army's cut in two. Same with the Union. Yeah. Like, Grant's got the other half sieging Vicksburg. That's why this is also a turning point. Like, around the same time, maybe the same day, Vicksburg falls to Grant on the Mississippi, and the Union controls the Mississippi. So they win here against the army in Northern Virginia, and then they get Vicksburg around the same time. That's why everything turned. And Grant would eventually take over as head of forces. I don't think he directly followed Meade. I can't remember. The Union kept changing. Like, McClellan at one point was there. Lincoln kept changing who it was. A lot of stuff.
That is one point from everything I read and listen to about this, is that Meade needed to be a bigger presence in this movie.
Yeah, he has one scene, 30 seconds. It's after Buford has gotten the good ground, and he meets up with all the officers at that little house, and Meade walks in, and so for reference, Jake and I watched an entire playlist of videos from a YouTube channel called Real History. Real is in movie reel. Oh. It is a guy who not only has a degree and is a history teacher, he worked like 5 or 6 years at Gettysburg, the park.
Wrote a book
about it, and he's made countless videos on it. We watched, it's like a 4-part video thing where he watches the movie and makes commentary.
Nearly as long as the movie itself.
And it's
wonderful. I love it.
And he's really, really smart and really, really good at talking about this.
And also knows about movies, too, which is the weirdest part of that equation to me.
Yeah. I feel like that's, and he's only, I don't even think he's 40. No, he could be. He's got a younger looking face. He's got to be Jake's age. Mm-hmm. And he's just super smart. Seems to be super likable. He also, the joke that he made, that he said he told on his tours was so funny. The whole, like, the biggest question he gets, another blow for the South, is Stonewall Jackson died a couple months before Gettysburg. And he was, like, their big guy under Lee, like, incredibly smart, incredibly tactical. And he said, one of the most popular questions I get at the parks is, what if Jackson was at Gettysburg? And his friend says, well, he'd smell pretty bad because he was dead 2 months.
And then the second one, where's Buster's grave?
Yeah, people would ask, like, where's Buster Kilrain's grave? And then they have to break it to him. He is a fictional character in the
That's
book.
what I'm saying. He's fictional. Why do you have to die? Best part.
Would you believe it, Colonel Darwin? The same arm, right in the under the armpit.
That's funny.
The Real History guy's discussion of this did make it a funny little companion piece that I just watched Gangs of New York a couple of weeks ago, and that
brought that up
that made
'cause
that
of
a
the
funny
riots.
little companion piece for me. Which, watching Gangs of New York, that's not even like a historical event that I considered. Like, I understood that that's why that was happening in the movie, but like that it was an event in history didn't even cross my mind.
Yeah, so great stuff to check out if you want more content. Just it's long, but he breaks it down. He has other videos. There's a 100-minute documentary he made where it's all interviews from guys who worked on the movie and reenactors. Like,
I was gonna say you interviewed a bunch of them reenactors.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. It's just there. It's mostly about like making the movie.
Yeah, that's cool.
And saying how, like, one guy saying like Martin Sheen was like the nicest guy, and he gave me a ride one day.
Aw.
Yeah, I think he said, like, I don't think he remembered who I was. Like, I was one of the guys riding on a horse, but he probably mistook me for someone else. But I was walking along, he picked me up.
Hell yeah.
So, that's so they told a bunch of stories like that, and it sounds like a really cool experience. Like they'd actually live, like because the reenactors, a lot of them go hard.
business.
Oh yeah, it's similar to yeah.
And they, of course, this movie had like. Real History said about 5,000. Most things I hear is about 4,000, but reenactors to dress up a lot of them, both sides, because you need those shots. So I say that some of those were shooting at ourselves, but there's no CG in this movie at all.
I will say,
And that's what I think also has helped to age. Not everything, but also has helped to age because early ¡90s CG is not going to look good.
I will say another early '90s thing that I picked out is anytime they're using the my brain just blanked. It's not a gimbal. Well, obviously it's the Steadicam. Anytime they used the Steadicam, it kind of wobbled a little bit, and I feel like anything nowadays, just like can we redo that again and make it smoother? Like I really noticed like the like it really.
There's one in particular where didn't the Real History guy that said that this was the first real instance of use of drones and stuff?
Yes,
I've seen the footage too because there's a behind the scenes thing on the Blu-ray. Here, I'll hold up in a second, where it's a mini helicopter.
Yeah, that makes
because
so much
they,
sense. The way the camera moves,
and it was a little shaky. And I remember when I was younger, I'm like, why does that not look great? And then now it's like. It doesn't bug me. It's early drone technology, and it's shots that no one else is getting like this.
Yeah, the one instance I remember very clearly is that they're doing like this shot where they're going over the army like along the line, and it just goes up and gets really shaky for a hot second. And I'm like, did someone like, what's it called, a jib or something?
A jib is
like the arm.
It's a giant arm. Yeah.
Yeah. Did someone
the
like
crane, right?
Bump? Yeah, kind of. Did someone like bump into it as they were going? That's exactly what I thought.
But back then, this probably would have been shot on film.
Yes,
I would have to assume.
Or really, really cheap digital. Yeah.
No, this had to be filmed.
Yeah.
So it might even been video.
I mean, if it came out in 1990, this had to be a thing that took at least a few years to make.
They filmed it from what they were saying. They filmed it over the summer of '92, and it came out in '93.
That's insane.
But that's so much to sift through, and
that's a lot. That's impressive, honestly. That amount of turnaround.
Yeah. I was watching. I didn't finish. I was watching his Gods and Generals videos, like his feedback, and one thing he was saying how like Ronald F. Maxwell, the director, he's like, give or take what he does or doesn't do, especially with like acting. Yeah. He's very good at incorporating the landscape into the iconography. very good at using what's around him. Very good at making it look, because there's some really good shots. The opening shots are beautiful.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out because like it was so like I swore like near the very end and near like you said like the very beginning like I feel like there was some they did a lot of good great stuff with silhouettes. They did a lot of
that shot with when Lee walks out of the tent and says, "Oh, it's just before morning."
Yeah,
that's when Longstreet's leaving?
Yes,
and then he says like, "I do like these mornings." I show him as, "Sir,
I
didn't mean the fighting."
There's something about the way that's lit that just speaks to me.
Yeah, it's I love that, and that's why I recognize that this was not their intention was to. Like Jerry, you were saying, like portray like the battle was very like just matter of factly like this was where they were coming from. I wanted personally a little more like give me some close-ups of people firing and then back up and then.
Hey, you got a lot of close-ups of Jeff Daniels firing a pistol like this, where you don't actually see the pistol fire, you just see him.
And I love that sequence. I thought that was really good. I'm just thinking like the other battle where it was like mostly cannons and that kind of stuff, where it's just the camera just moving through, they shoot. I love
the rack focus too. Like there'll be a cannon, whoop, the one right in the foreground. It goes from the background into the fore. I love that where you can tell they're just cranking.
Yeah.
And could you imagine being on set when not only everyone's marching, or when the cannons are all going off, or when everyone's lining up?
Oh yeah,
that would be so like chaotic and stressful,
but cool. Like just
and cool. Yeah.
Well, as they say in the documentary, like film sets, as we pretty much know, are very boring if you're not the one making it.
Yeah.
In this scale, he said, like, most of our days, we're in our full gear. We're just sitting, waiting for them to get the shot set. And then we'd go, and then we'd wait 20 minutes we'd reset and wait. He said, like, a lot of days are just spent wait, because when you have that many people and that many moving parts.
I think in that note on the top of that collector's set, it's from the director, and he says something like, "This is an experience that changed us all." Like, just the amount of emotion that...
And extras and all that kind of stuff.
Well, and just think about the moment it was in American history.
Yeah.
Yeah, that charge. Literally, people talk about the charge being the actual turning point, because Confederacy almost won that second day. And the second day, funny enough, was bloodier than the third day, because there was fighting all around, because everyone thinks, oh, Pickett's charge is the highest loss of life of the battle. It's the second day, because they were fighting all along the fishhook.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that was a funny thing too. Listening to the real history guy talk about the fishhook like that, the door maneuver that everybody always talks about was not intentional.
It wasn't. He never gathered his officers because he said there's no time for that. That never would have happened. He said it basically was he ordered the charge, and Ellis Spear, one of his officers, did the swinging thing kind of just impromptu, like he and the soldiers just kind of did that.
Like they got separated and they were trying to rejoin.
Yep.
I think is what he said.
And Chamberlain kind of, he wrote memoirs, embellished in places like you do.
I mean,
and of course, if it's 20 years after the fact, of course you're going to misremember things, because what you remember is you won and you did this charge when.
What was it?
That's just, but it would have been really fast, and that's one of those like it's got to be more cinematic than just. They go.
What's Chamberlain's first name?
Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain. His brother is constantly calling him Lawrence. And you go, gosh darn it, Tom, don't call me Lawrence. Just look
Apparently
like favoritism.
He had a third brother in the war, too.
Who was a doctor. And there is a line in the movie that is actually said in real life, which is the case with a lot of the movie. But it was, he's like, Tom, I want you to go down there. Otherwise, it could be a very bad day for Mother. Because that's what actually happened, because all three brothers was like, let's spread out, so it's, we can't do that to
them. At least consider it.
Looking at Civil War era photos, you would understand why people think that photos stole your soul.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a lot of people, yep.
Oh, yeah. I love that.
He's cross-eyed, too.
You gotta love the old classics.
Yeah, it's often called one of the first modern wars, the way that supplies was run, in the ways that it was handled. Also, photographs, like the earliest photographs were being used. Like, it's a big turning point for just war in general in the world.
The other thing that I thought was interesting, learned from the real history guy, was that Chamberlain never had a sidearm like that.
Not
he
until
only ever just had the sword. and not until they actually took it from that guy on the hillside, which is one of the funny things about this movie was just because they're all reenactors and they know how to like sell the fall and sell the shot and all that. It was so funny to watch everybody just react in the background. Like this has to be like, since you became a background watcher, one of your favorite things, because
that's probably
they just do the most random stuff, and like because that's not the focus. Like the part that I remember the most is Chamberlain coming down the hill and he's doing this like trot thing that no one else is doing.
He's hurt because he's He's limping around. Back half of the battle, and then when he's later, he's kind of hobbled around.
I did not realize that. I didn't think he was actually shot. I thought it got stopped by a sword.
But I can't remember if they cut it or not. There's something where he like got hurt. I know in the real battle, I think like a piece of shrapnel or something got caught in his toe. Yeah, because they still have boots on display at his museum.
That's
where there's leather sewn over the spot where the bullet.
That's in Maine because he became the governor of Maine. Yep. Anyways, it's Jeff Daniels trotting down that hill like that, and he goes in. It's the first guy first Confederate he interacts with, and it's I called him an extra. I'm gonna call him an extra again. And he like willingly like turns his back into Jeff Daniels to like stop it. It's just this really not well choreographed moment, but it's like behind half of a tree. And
well, you remember all those guys talk about like this set was incredibly dangerous. This would not fly these days, and not out of any like bad practices, just how dangerous some of the stunt work could be because it's the reenactors doing a lot of it. And he said and you're running down this hill. Also, a lot of people had real bayonets.
Oh yeah.
Like you're gonna have fake rubber ones for certain shots, but he said like some people they're running around with like these real bayonets, and he said some of those shots where people are like hitting each other, like punching or with guns. He said people actually got hit and like split lips, like busted up faces. He said that's what people get too into it, which happens. I also real quick when the second advance by the Confederates on Little Round Top, and there's the 20th main guy that throws his gun and like jumps out onto him. Mm-hmm. And then later they show him come back to the line, like run back up, scamper behind. I go, that's great. Just we saw him, 5 minutes ago jump onto a guy, and then there he is running back. It's kind of like in Saving Private Ryan, that guy finding his arm. It's kind of in that same vein.
Oh man, I had managed to forget about that. Wow, stop it.
I mean, that's better than the guy with his guts hanging out on the beach yelling "Mama." That's what scarred me when I first watched it.
I don't know.
That would do it.
The arm one. You have a different reason for the arm one.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I was gonna say that's a difference between us. Anyway, though, so there's a lot of stuff on set that just sounded like it wasn't like it was organized, but it could get out of hand, and it was dangerous. And also, Little Round Top is not that wooded; it's rockier than that. But they can't film there because there's a paved path and a monument.
Yeah, it's kind of.
Or at least now there. But
didn't the real history guy say that there's like a road like right outside of where one of the main battlefield scenes are, and they like had to frame it weirdly because. Because that main road is just right there.
The shot of the 20th Maine on the third day up on the rocks, like waiting. He said, if you look in the background, there is a fake bush covering up a statue. Because there's a statue up there, but they had to cover it up for the shot. Yeah. It makes me appreciate the amount of work went into trying to use real locations, or at least close to them. Because nowadays, you can take that statue out in post.
Yeah.
There's so many ways to do it now, but like this, they had to get creative. Now, throwing a fake bush over isn't like the most creative thing, but the amount of work they went into to making this look like it's the 1860s.
That's one of the primary reasons that the main battle on that third day is not fully shot on the field that it actually occurred on, because there's so many statues and monuments now. It made me actually want to go there.
Oh, I wanted to go there.
In my brain, I was like, hey, Andrea. Oh, not in my brain. It was audibly. I was like, hey, Andrea, what do you think about going to Pennsylvania? When? Now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know. in my school system, the 8th graders, after the school year's over, they go on an East Coast trip. And one of the stops before they get to the East Coast is Gettysburg. I know. And I remember my uncle would be like running, because he's a 5th grade teacher. He'd run that whole thing for the 8th graders. And he would ask to borrow my copy of Gettysburg, my DVD, because he'd show it on the bus. Because that's a long bus ride, and that's 4.5 hours or whatever.
And he doesn't have to worry about Leonardo DiCaprio drawing boobies.
That's a completely different story. That does not matter. So right here, I'll pull it out right now. This is the Blu-ray. This came out for the 150th Civil War commemoration.
Is that how you watched it this time?
This is how I've watched it the last couple times. I mean, this is like 2011. I bought this probably around then, probably about 2013 or 14, and I gave my uncle that copy because it was like he borrows it every year. I have this copy now.
You're talking about Larry. Yep. That's who you're talking about.
Yep. So he'd borrow it. So I'm like, how about I just give you my DVD copy because you're gonna borrow it anyway, and I have this. And it's like nowadays I probably would have just held on to the DVD and just bought him one, but it's like this is good. Maybe one day I'll buy a cheap copy of the DVD to have it, so then I have the 4 formats. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also brought Gods and Generals just to show it, like because they had like there's a box that you can get with both. I bought them separately because I bought Gettysburg way before this. So this is, and it's got like the 2 discs, the booklet in the middle. They're very nice. I wish the movie was better.
You hear about how bad that is. I really kind of want to watch it just to see how bad it is.
While watching Real Histories, his name is Jared, by the way.
Oh my God!
While watching Jared's reaction, while watching Jared's reactions to it, I was like, for how much I don't care for it and know the negative, we'll get into it. It's making me want to watch it again just because it's so interesting. Mm-hmm. And again, this covers a couple years of the war leading up to Gettysburg, which is Gettysburg's 3 or 4 days. So there's too much in Gods and Generals. There's more problems, but that's like the big thing. And
I thought it was Stonewall Jackson's story.
It is Stonewall Jackson. There's a lot more. Chamberlain is in it too.
How?
Because there's a scene of him and his wife talking about him enlisting.
You mean there's women in this?
There are women in it. And a lot of the writing in Gods and Generals is really bad, so people are delivering these really funny lines.
But then, like, Martin Sheen isn't generally.
It's Robert Duvall, who was supposed to be Lee in Gettysburg, and stuff came up where Martin Sheen was the last-second replacement. I think Robert Duvall is actually related to Robert E. Lee.
What?
Kind of in the same vein as how Tom Hanks is related to Abraham Lincoln.
What?
Like, I don't remember how close or far it is, but both of them are related to those respective figures. Yeah. And Robert Duvall looks more like Robert E. Lee than Martin Sheen does. Yeah. But that's why that casting choice is like that.
I would say also that Jared from Real History was going through and saying, like, this guy on the battlefield is related, the Patton guy is the one that sticks out, the dude that Ted Turner plays. That he is playing Patton, who is the grandfather of General Patton from World War II, who is da-da-da-da-da, who is da-da-da-da-da, and it's like, oh my gosh, you gonna say it's kind of inbred, aren't they?
Yeah, if you're wondering, there's a cameo by Ted Turner as Patton. He's the one that Armistead sticks his sword through. We'll stay. Oh, come with me. Let's get him, boys! And then he gets shot right away. I go, well, there's Ted Turner.
Huh, that's funny.
And then there's a couple other cameos.
Before or after he puts his hat on the...
I just said that's the scene.
Oh, okay.
It's because he, come with me, and then, let's go, boys! It's right there. There's a couple other cameos, as he brings up. Ken Burns is in it.
Oh, Ken Burns.
He has one small part where he walks up and has a line, and he says to, because remember... when Third Day started, Hancock comes out on the horse, and he's like, "There's some days where generals are worth the same," or something like that. He says something like, "It's a nice moment." And Ken Burns is one saying, like, "Generals, please get off your horse," or whatever. That's Ken Burns. If you know who George Lazenby is, the Australian actor that portrayed James Bond.
Okay.
So when they were trying to recast Connery, George
wasn't he
Lazenby
for,
got
like,
for one
one-
on Her
that's right,
Majesty's
yeah.
Secret Service.
Okay.
He is in it for like one scene, and then he plays Pettigrew, who's the one where right before the charge, Pickett goes up to Pettigrew and Trimble, and he talks to him, and I remember he's got this real big drawl, and it's actually pretty decent, according to... So there he is, and apparently they waited to film his scene because he wanted to actually grow the beard, and he did.
Oh my god.
There's a documentary on Lazenby that is on Hulu that I don't know if it's good or bad because it's such a weird way to make a documentary. George Lazenby has lived a life. That guy really likes sex.
You know what? Some people do.
A lot. And the thing, like, and the whole thing of, like, he had, like, no acting experience and just walked in and kind of faked the whole thing, and that's how he got James. It's a wild
fantastic.
story.
That sounds wild.
It's one of those documentaries that's, like, half him telling us the story of his life and half, like, reenacting it, but in, like, a weird, cheesy, but purposely cheesy.
Yeah, that
It's
sounds
weird,
interesting.
but it's very interesting.
It
So
also-
he has that cameo.
It also blows your mind to think that the actor that played Pickett is the white-haired dude from Avatar.
Yeah, Stephen Lang.
Oh yeah, Stephen Lang. Yeah.
It's
It took
absurd
me
in
a
my
second.
head.
I had to.
Makes sense. He's
Believe
just
me.
good at those roles.
When he popped up, I'm like,
Why does he look
I don't
familiar?
know who this is. I'm like, I IMDb this really fast. I didn't see that.
Also, the dude that played Buster.
Kevin Conway.
Yeah. So when I first read the cast list, I read Conway and I thought, wait, he's Batman, right?
Oh.
It was not until he got shot on top of Little Round Top where I was like, no, that's Conroy.
Almost.
And he's got the big title drop speech for the book because it's in the book. It's almost word for word,
I will.
and that's such a great scene.
I will say, some of the lines like that speech and a couple other speeches. I'm like, this came from a book. Like I can tell it was very well. Like it was like just
But the
like it was very speechy.
what's it? Well, if he's an angel, he must be a killer angel, which is a great title. And they didn't use it because Ted Turner thought people would think it's a people go wanting a biker movie, The Killer Angels. That's the whole reason they changed it to
Interesting
Gettysburg.
thought, Ted Turner.
That is interesting.
Yeah, so, yeah. Speaking of influences, Jake, this is funny. The movie that Firefly not movie, the book, it's The Killer Angels is like the biggest inspiration for Firefly. If you wonder why I have a copy of Firefly, Jake gave it to me, and it was in here, and today I was like, what movie did I recently read about that is? And I was like, oh, it's The Killer Angels, the book, influenced Joss Whedon to make Firefly. So that's just a fun
that's
little...
funny.
What a weird.
Yeah, it's just
connection.
a fun little thing. I just wanted to bring that up, but
I think something I don't know if we've been talking a long time. I don't know if we've mentioned it, but like if we've talked about how the movie doesn't really push back on the Confederacy enough. They try to at points.
yeah, it's not enough.
Yeah, with
Do
like
you want my spiel or?
let me point
Yeah,
out what I'm
okay.
talking about. There's a moment like where you remember Longstreet says we should have freed the slaves and then fired on Fort
Sumter.
And then you think, yeah. And then you read about it, and everything you read, he never would have said that.
No, when you mentioned
Hollywood manufactured drama, and it's like, I get what you're trying to do. It's not enough.
you mentioned. I remember that scene. That line. I'm like, this rubs me the wrong way. I just no. I know that's not what actually.
It's a nice moment, but
It's a
historically
nice moment
inaccurate.
that's written 100 years after or 125 years after the fact, or whatever it is.
Yeah, something like that. So my whole thing is, I think Ronald Maxwell wanted to make this book, which is a great book, into something that is meaningful and can portray it more on that level of grounded history without leaning. But I think in his execution, it unfortunately becomes more Confederate lost cause heavy. And I don't think that was the intention.
Yeah.
It's hard, though, because when you watch the Gods and Generals movie, that is most definitely the case. I can't explain it here. I'm not qualified for that. I don't know enough. But when you watch it, it's like, okay, this isn't even like something you could interpret. It is giving power to these images when it should be more condemning, and it's not. Gettysburg pushes back a little bit. It doesn't do it hard enough. And one of the guys in the documentary said, like, I think it's a good movie. I think it's a really cool snapshot of when the movie was made, how reenacting was like the height of it. I also think it's a little too casual about pushing back on the slavery part of it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's fair. And he says, but I also recognize of what it's trying to do in that regard.
Yeah, I think with Gettysburg, you can boil it down to a couple of like weird tonal decisions that it makes, like some of the sweeping music, which we'll talk about the score. Jared loves the score; it's a great score. But then
it's
like
a little much.
But then like
times.
sometimes they're doing this like soaring movement when like Lee is like trotting up, and you're like, they really do think he's a god, and maybe that's what they were trying to portray. But like watching it for the first time now at this point in history that we're in, when we hear a lot of the same sorts of things echo just in our politics and in our society, it's kind of like and then what'd you say, 10 years later Gods and Generals gets made, and it's like that colors that, and it's kind of like this is less about the thing that happened that was very important and very significant, and
it really was like, I feel like it was just like 3 to 4 times in about like a 4-hour movie. It's easy to try to like forget the couple times that it like mentions like that stuff, and
coming down to execution changed from what he probably was envisioning originally. And that is a shame.
It also could be just, okay, this is going to sound really weird. We are from the North. We are definitely taught a specific way, and a specific way. Like, I remember being taught that, like, Lee is, like, one of the quintessential American villains.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Which is a fair assessment. And I remember you reacted to the one of the most beloved general that is actually true.
Yeah.
It is. Because
I also
even
think
before the Civil War.
There's a reason that they made him their leader.
And there's a reason why he has a car named after him. Do you have a car named after you?
Car.
The General Lee from Dukes of Hazzard?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
I think also
I should have guessed. Sorry to cut you off. I should have guessed when he didn't even know this movie takes place in Pennsylvania that he wouldn't know what the General Lee car is.
I really haven't even watched Dukes of Hazzard.
Oh, I never have.
What, you didn't even watch the one with Jessica Simpson? Where you been, man?
I always get that mixed up with Employee of the Month.
Do you really?
I don't know why. I've not seen either.
Come on, you've seen a show with Bo Duke as John Schneider?
I don't remember which one he is, but I know John Schneider.
Yeah. Oh, and then they have the other one later in Smallville. Come on and show up. It is fun.
You were saying.
Anyway, yeah. I don't remember what I was saying.
You were talking about how we're taught a certain perspective.
Yeah, we are taught as like we're taught that this is definitively evil, and it is pretty evil. But like, I don't want to speak for how someone in the South is taught that, or even if it's different now.
I think it is different now, but it's still, you have to.
Who knows though? We don't live
like
down
again.
there.
Listen, I live inside my own very personal bubble, that I don't know anything outside.
But then this was also a thing where it's a country fighting a country, and like we don't even know. Like you hear about civil wars that happen even now, you don't know what that's like. I mean, a great illustration of that is the dude that's in one of your favorite scenes, the Armistead fighting Hancock.
Yeah. Which is like the whole emotional core of that movie.
Where these are brothers that are literally torn up by something that is wrong, but they view it differently. So,
and they've talked many times about like, I couldn't fight against my homeland. It's like, imagine getting caught in that spot where you're in this army and they're asking you to go fight. Like, I don't know what that's like. I'm not saying that's the only issue involved with the fight, because that's not the big issue of the fight. But I don't know how to approach that.
I guess what this boils down to, like what the South was fighting for was definitely wrong and evil, but it, like, I can't imagine having to make that decision in that time.
Oh, Lee making that decision to, like, he's asked to be the head of the Union Army and he declines and then resigns. Like, I don't know how that was like. I know he couldn't, fight against his homeland, but also like I don't know.
I think
it was fighting for an inherently evil thing.
in kind of dissecting this and reading about this and like the 3 days that I've been doing it, there are people that have spent their whole lives doing this. It feels like such. The more I peel back the layer of the onion, the more I'm like, holy shit, this is so much bigger than I ever was taught.
Well, I mean, when you get 1 week
I was gonna say
in one grade to talk about it, it's like how you can't unpack a whole conflict.
And how are you going to unpack a whole conflict
to
like
a bunch
that
of kids?
Too? Yeah.
You have to go black and white.
You
got to go, like just this is wrong, this is right. You have to kind of do that. I think this is
just an illustration of how poor the American education system is.
I said
it. There I said it.
The freezingest cold take you've ever said.
Yep.
I watched a video by the cynical historian who we've brought up before. I think There Will Be Blood is the last time I brought it up. He has a whole video on lost cause stuff, and he makes this point, because this guy has like a master's in history or whatever, a doctorate. Like, he's super smart. He said, like, it has become part of people's culture, and people had nothing to do with the Civil War.
It's so ridiculous.
But you can't even say ridiculous. It's just part of how they're raised. Yeah. Like, not like they're out waving Confederate flag. Like imagine you grew up.
A lot of them are out waving Confederate flags.
A lot, but probably not the majority.
Maybe.
No, it's not the majority.
But what I'm saying is, imagine being, a simpleton like us, and that's just you're raised with that stuff around you, and that's how it's taught in school, and how how do you approach
trauma
that?
Is a thing.
Yeah.
Even if it's not trauma, even if it's just something that's around, and then one day you're told all about it, or you like make that realization. It's like it's
scary.
It's scary, but it's also kind of hard to like wrap your head around it, because it's like, how am I supposed to just? You can't really discard it. It's part of me, but I also don't need to like celebrate it. It's that whole thing with the statues, Jake, and I've talked about like taking down statues that represent suppression of a type of people or a celebration of people who suppress. Yeah, it's good to take them down. I'd maybe not destroy them, maybe put them in like a museum.
The other side of that conversation is, what do you do with them?
Yeah,
because then if you put them in if you put them in a museum, you effectively make a museum of hate, but you can't forget those moments.
You have to learn from them.
Yes. It's just like if you were to tear down, and maybe not quite just like it, but if you were to tear down a Holocaust memorial, like, we need that reminder that happened, that we were in that awful, terrible, worst time in history place, to make sure that we don't go back there.
It's like maybe tearing down those statues and then building up memorials in those spots would be the best way to
Or there are better there are better ways that we're not smart enough.
Yeah.
But then there's
I'm some 28-year-old schmuck over here.
But then there's also like, we live in a completely different age where it's like we have photos and books and all this other stuff. Maybe we don't need those. Maybe we need like one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing too is when you run into people who don't ever think about anything deeper at all, and then they're like, when you say, "Well, we can't let history repeat itself." Oh, you really think we're going to do this again? You think there's going to be like slavery again? And I go,
look at
where
the world is right now.
Who was our president? Like about
the
4 years ago?
The whole point is they think, oh, we're going to revert back to this one thing. It's like things can be the same and look different throughout history. That's just how it works. If we don't recognize where something comes from, then it's going to pop back up in a different way, and we're not going to recognize it. Or a lot of people already don't recognize it.
And also, we want to point out that our perspective on this is not correct, because we are not the people that have been subjugated by those images, and we understand that.
And we're also not the people and we also are not the people thinking and making these decisions about those things, because we're just pawns.
And we're just trying to think of a way for our generation and generations to do things differently going forward and make a better world for everyone.
Yeah.
I think that's important to say during that discussion.
Watch movies like Gettysburg in school, and that'll hopefully lead towards conversations.
That is one thing we didn't discuss. There is one black person in this film, and
it has to come up, and that is something I've always said. That is a missed opportunity. Jared at Real History said it too. I've heard it in other things. I believe it's also said in the History Buffs video. The YouTube channel History Buffs.
That rings a bell.
Yep.
That's the British guy, right?
Yep. Nick Hodges.
And what
I hope
I watched another Civil War movie when I was in school. It's like one word. It's like
Glory.
Thank you.
So
I knew he was going to because Glory was a couple years before this and was kind of that helping of making Civil War movies big in the 90s.
I hear Glory's better.
Glory, and again,
I think they're comparable. They're different. It's very different.
School.
It's much more Hollywood.
Okay.
But it also it's a very good. It also probably doesn't. From what I've heard, it focuses more on the white characters than it needs to. But that's also important. I could be wrong, but I've heard people say like it's good. It's not as good as it could have been, but it's still important.
Oh, I have a.
And Denzel Washington is really good in it. He won the Oscar for supporting actor for that.
I have a funny story about that. So I do a fun game where when we watch really random movies, I snap a frame of it and I send it to Drew, and I say, "Quick, identify this."
Did you get this?
He said, "I don't know. It's either Gettysburg or Glory."
Civil War movie. Yeah.
Which is funny because they have two very distinct looks.
The image I sent him, I mean, it's not that shocking that he got it, but
that is funny.
It's still like
Glory is way more stylized.
It
like,
is. From what again, it's
I think it won the cinematography Oscar as well.
Oh, really?
I think it did. Which, yeah. But again, it's
this is what I sent him.
You mean in a movie where we hardly see the Confederates at all? We only see them in combat. And even then, a lot of times it's at night. Because the Fort Wagner scenes at the end is what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
So back to the one African-American character in the movie, and Nick mentions it, and I think Jared mentions it too. I think I said it like a second ago. He doesn't speak. And what Jared said is, what could be the interpretation of the scene by Maxwell is he's so traumatized by what he's gone through to get to this spot, because they said he's a runaway. Okay. That's probably why he doesn't speak. And there's also, I think he said the chance that he might speak a different language. There's a whole factor of things. It probably comes down to he's just too scared. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it's an opportunity, even if it's one line, an opportunity to get that little bit of that perspective and have that more of that pushback, but they don't take it. And that is one of those. So I can see Maxwell on set thinking that way and trying to portray putting that into a person in front of you, but did miss a big opportunity. I feel like, I can't remember. I feel like in the book, if he doesn't speak, it's at least a longer scene. Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, if the shot was a little bit longer and more like facially acted, I think it would make...
Yeah. I think he's making a little bit of it, like he's shaking just a little bit, like he's scared, but it's not enough.
But they just kind of like say something and then keep moving.
Yeah, because that's right before they walk up to the tree to have the big speech between them, the big conversation. So, the way Chamberlain talks about it, I think divine spark. I never saw a true difference. I always there was a man, and I think Jared said he was an abolitionist.
Can I just say how weird it is to hear you refer to someone named Jared?
Yeah.
It sounds like you're talking about yourself.
But Jared made another. He made another point.
I'm sorry, I just broke it.
He made another point about how the Union Army was not made up of all abolitionists like we're led to believe. That's the other thing. We're led to believe, every single guy fighting on the Union side was anti-slavery. That's not true.
That probably would be.
That doesn't even mean it's a majority. Doesn't mean they're. But that's just how it was.
That's what I was thinking when I watched that scene. You're right. It doesn't do enough, but it also speaks to kind of the Union is fighting for the Union to stay together. Yes, the abolition of slaves, but
and that is the key issue of this whole war.
Yes, that is the thing. But also, just because you abolish slavery doesn't mean you're not racist.
Well, probably the majority of them were, because it's just how this is at the time, unfortunately, is how people thought.
Buddy, that hung around until only about more than 50.
I was going to say, it's still around now. 60? What are you talking about? Yeah, honestly, yeah. Are you talking about segregation? Is that what you're talking about?
Segregation I was specifically referring to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's kind of how that is all perceived. It's here's this opportunity, we miss it. But it also, when you listen to these other people, especially Nick Hodges, not being American, has a different perspective on this whole war, because he wasn't taught this in school. It doesn't mean anything to his history. I'm guessing he's British. He could be Welsh or Scottish or Irish, and I just didn't recognize the accent. He sounds British. Mm-hmm. But the whole point being, there are different perspectives on it, and when you have a movie like this that portrays it like that to people outside the U.S., it also doesn't sway them right away. They can come to their own, and that's where that's where you can have those issues. But of course, it doesn't mean as much for him because it's not his country's history.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that's the biggest opportunity. What were you going to segue into?
I was just going to go way back to when we were talking about James Michener, just to kind of complete the circle on this.
Is that how you say his name? Or is it Michener?
I've always said it Michener.
Okay, I don't know.
I have no idea. I've never heard him say it, and he died in 1997, which is 3 years after you were born.
Yep.
So.
And before that, he made the tires and the stars for the gourmet food restaurants.
No, that's Michelin.
Oh. You were saying?
I feel like there's a ton of adaptations for film and TV. A couple of Broadway musicals, one in which I'm pretty sure you know.
Well,
because it's a Rodgers and Hammerstein play.
South Pacific.
Yeah.
There you go.
I have seen South Pacific. The movie, South Pacific.
They made a television movie based on that. There's also a South Pacific movie, but more than most of them, this 1957 film was nominated for 10 Academy Awards, and it won Best Supporting Actress
for Umeki.
Yeah.
And Red Buttons got supporting actor because the movie is Sayonara, which Brando's also nominated. Who's the female lead? It's not Jennifer Jones, is it?
So you are familiar with the work? I don't know.
I've seen Sayonara.
It doesn't.
If it's a Best Picture,
yeah,
nominee,
I was
gonna
say it doesn't say whether it's a Best Picture nominee.
You said 57. I go, well, it's not Bridge on the River Kwai. It's not Peyton Place. It's not Witness for the Prosecution, and it's got to be Sayonara. For sure, I know I'm missing one. I just instantly jumped to and 12 Angry Men.
Semi-autobiographical, which
I didn't know that. That you want to talk about a movie that has a lot of good things, is too long, and it does not really handle the stuff all that well. Sayonara.
It doesn't look like it handles it that well.
It's actually pretty good. Like, the acting's really good, and it's cool that she won. I think before I don't want to screw up her name for Minari winning supporting actress. I don't think there had been an Asian woman that had won.
That was
come on, load.
I know her name.
This is
Marlon
Brando and an exquisite new Japanese star. They live James A. Michener's story of a defiant desire. It's called Sayonara. That sounds like it handles it just beautifully, just like perfectly. Like she's treated totally like the human that she is.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So it's Yoon Yoo-jung. I think it's like that. I am terrible at pronouncing names for any country, language, culture. I'm terrible at it. But that's the best. She won supporting actress for that. Well deserved. Have you seen Minari?
I haven't seen the whole movie, but I've seen a fair amount of scenes on YouTube.
She's easily the best part. I would say Steven Yeun is also great. So I can't say I don't want, but she's so good in that movie. But I think before her in an acting category, or at least that supporting acting, it was Umeki who had won. And now, of course, she had a couple from Everything Everywhere last year.
Yeah, boy.
That won a couple. So, but yeah, that's what I remember. So I'm aware of that movie. Were there any others from Michener?
Not that note that it's like nominated for a Best Picture or even an Oscar.
Well, what are some other big ones?
Big ones?
Or just ones?
I don't know about that. The Bridge of Tokori.
The bridge is at Tokyo.
No, it's not Tokyo. It's Tokori.
Tokori, sorry. That sounds familiar. I think it's a
19
William Holden movie.
Return to Paradise.
What are you laughing at?
Just your knowledge. I'm laughing at
Men of the Fighting Lady. Sounds super correct.
Men of the Fighting Lady.
Until They Sail. Sayonara, South Pacific, Adventures in Paradise, Hawaii, The Hawaiians, which is based on another section of that movie.
Gotcha.
Centennial, which is a TV miniseries.
That's
which
what
is
you were
I was talking about. Caravans.
when he was saying Centennial, all I could think of was the Alan Alda directed movie Sweet Liberty, where he's dressed as like a Minuteman and he's riding a motorcycle or like a dirt bike or something. I've never seen the movie, but that image of him just going on the cover.
There
I
is,
do love Alan Alda.
They did a TV miniseries for space. There's a TV miniseries called James Michener's Texas.
That's the one that I have.
And then a 2001 movie called South Pacific.
Gotcha. I think that's like a non-musical, or is it the musical?
It's based on the musical.
Interesting. Musical's fine. I just sang to you one of the songs that I remember. I think the other one's Some Enchanted Evening, I think, is from South Pacific.
I figured that you would know the musical at the very... Well, I knew that you were going to know Sayonara. I figured you would probably know the musical.
Yeah, Michener. Yes, that's a big tangent, but that was fun.
Anything else about Gettysburg?
Yeah, there's more. I probably just...
And talk a little bit more about the score there, bud?
Oh, yeah, we will. Yeah.
Oh, you want to open that up
I'll
show everybody what's in there? It's got some cool stuff in there.
This was given to me today by Jake. I'm going to hold it in front of me. It is the limited collector's edition Laserdisc. And
how much did that cost?
He's not going to say.
I am not going to divulge.
He wouldn't even tell me how he got it.
Oh, nope. I can't divulge my sources, my guy.
He's being very secretive.
Secret. I got a secret.
You don't know the words.
Oh, you're right, I don't.
I do. I love Styx. And the Stones.
And REO.
Yeah.
Who's intrinsically involved with Styx.
Yeah, because they're both from the Midwest, and all they can do now is tour.
At casinos.
I saw them at Van Andel.
Really?
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
2018.
I mean, that's like 6 years ago now.
Yeah, I mean, they still tour.
When I was a wee lad, it was mostly Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. Now I realize that may have been before Van Andel was built. I got to see when Van Andel was built.
So in this laser disc, we have a note from Ronald F. Maxwell about the movie. We have the actual discs. Hopefully I can get these out. What is it, 3 or 2? Yep, it's 3 discs. So it's
I was
6
alive
sides.
before Van Andel was built.
That makes sense. So these are pretty cool.
He doesn't even have a Laserdisc player.
No.
You have so many laser discs.
Yeah. It's collecting.
Physical media, bro.
Yeah.
So we have a booklet that's a lot about paintings of Gettysburg. It's very nice hardcover. Smells like a book.
Leather bound, apparently. You have to take off the dust cover to see.
I can feel it.
You can. Wow, that was something.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yep, and then we have some
Excuse me.
photos.
Oh yeah.
There's Longstreet. Then Jake, you said it did not come with the
No, I had to go find that.
soundtrack, so he found it and put it in the spot where it's supposed to be. I have the same exact thing at home as well, which I have listened to in my car, because there's nothing better than hitting 300,000 miles on your car than blasting a song from this movie, and it lined up perfectly. I'll show you the video after we're done. It's pretty funny.
Actually,
Did you show him the coolest thing that's in there?
Have you been paying attention?
No, I haven't. I've been looking at how long the Van Andel Arena's been around.
Comes with this rolled up map of where all the movements are. Hear ye, right?
Yeah.
Hear ye.
Here's some more of Jared rolling up.
Yep. And Dickey laughing like he's a machine. You'll get machine gunned. And then this little pouch, there's an actual a bullet shell.
Oh.
Which, doesn't smell like anything.
I actually don't think it's a shell.
I thought it was a shell.
No.
Or the bullet itself. I'm really
So
bad on
back
it.
when, from what I understand, back in the Civil War, this was before they had shells, which is why they had to use the ramrod.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, they had the balls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that.
Weren't these in the balls? Or the balls?
No, those. Yeah. Apparently, that's an authentic bullet from the Civil War. I tried to authenticate it somehow, but I couldn't. I was kind of hoping you had the VHS collector's edition so we could compare the two, but
Nope, I don't.
But enjoy that.
I will. I wish I had more time to read the director's thing in the book today, but
Save that for tonight when you get home.
oh yeah.
And don't hurt those discs.
Why would I hurt them? I treat my stuff very, very carefully. Ooh, careful.
It falls off the table.
So this score is my favorite film score of all time.
Wow.
And it just comes down to when you have watched this movie for over 20 years and it's already got great music, it's just going to embed itself into what you emotionally react to in film. So I have an affinity for those 80s and 90s scores that are really loud and are used a lot just because
he doesn't like the 80s.
I was just thinking that, yeah.
I don't like popular 80s music and a lot of the popular movies. But there's a lot of music, like the way they use music, like score, that is good when it's not.
He's referring to Top Gun. Specifically.
Garbage.
It is a paper-thin movie. I'll give you that.
So that's kind of why, and it's like you get emotion at times, so when you listen to the score, it brings me back to that moment, like any film score, and whenever I hear that opening note for the and then you have the
30 seconds before Dickey was bored.
Yeah. Like I love that theme. I love the little round top music, which is used in different places all around, and I always hate when people go, "Are they just using the same music this whole movie?" And then you have to be like, "That's how film scores work, bud." It's
how many
called
different pieces do you think is in Star Wars?
Yeah, there's about 4 or 5, and that's about
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
And it's just funny, like Indiana Jones, it's the same thing played over and over again. But it's great.
That's great.
But
It's John
When you
Williams.
find something that
They
good.
also remix like the tempo and
Like there's different time signatures, there's
composition
different
of it
keys.
But you still
It's
have-
incorporated with other themes. Like that's how this works. It's basically one big piece of music that has themes and it's just chopped up differently. That's
who do
how
you
a
know
film
that doesn't know that?
Most
Most of the people you know are pretty musical people, or most of the people that I know that you know are
Yeah.
pretty music. Like how?
I feel like it's also like people you talk to just casually with. It's like old like jobs you've worked, people you've run across, classes where you just talk. It's like, do you know how this works? Like there's stuff all three of us could have people say that to us about stuff too. It's I guess I don't, but like this is one thing. Is like you realize that's how like movie scores. It's not always the same track. It's the same theme used for different reasons and at different parts and used differently. Not every movie is Lord of the Rings where there's like 30 or 50 different themes written.
Also,
And that
it's
they even
not
reuse.
all-
Yeah, they all
everything
reuse
used in the
stuff
soundtrack of a movie or the score of a movie is not always a part of the score that was made for the movie.
Are you saying like on the soundtrack isn't always what's in the movie?
Like sometimes stuff on the score was pulled from a different thing because was something specific the director wanted.
Sometimes it's not even in the movie. It's cut.
Yeah.
Example, there is a theme in Disney's Hunchback that is a prominent part of the score, but the song was cut and instead became an All for One cover during the end credits. So it's in the movie, but it's not like in the actual like movie between the before the credits. And it's Someday. It's the do 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 do. You hear that a couple times in the score, and it's because that was a Quasimodo song, and they cut it because he already has a I Want type song, which is out there. So when you hear it during the end, you're like, okay, that fits what we've heard this whole movie because it's in the score. What are you laughing about?
You talking about Disney is reminding me of some Donald Duck TikToks I sent Dickey recently.
Screw you, Jake. Those are so stupid. I'm watching this like, what the hell?
For all of you that don't know, my pastime is sending Dickey awful TikToks, just awful things.
They're so dumb.
I've sent him a TikTok of that 2011 How to Train Your Dragon meme with the dancing tooth. Like I've sent him like 2 or 3 of those a day for like the past month and a half.
Is that from when the first movie came out? 2010.
Yeah, it's from the animation is from the like How to Train Your Dragon in a Minute or something like that.
Okay. Oh wow. So yeah, like 2010.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So that is my favorite score of all time. Hits it checks off all the boxes for me. It makes me feel when I hear it separated from the movie. It takes me right in like it's supposed to. Randy Edelman somehow never truly getting recognition for his movie scores. His big one that he didn't get nominated for, he did Last of the Mohicans the year before this, the Michael Mann movie, which everyone thought would get nominated. It didn't. And yeah, it's easily my favorite score. I love that guitar used in the main theme there. You know, that plays, and then the rest of the orchestra backs up the part after it plays.
Is it bad that my brain, I'm so stupid sometimes, most times, honestly, my brain, when the banjo and the classical guitar were playing in the scenes where they are, I was like, they had classical guitars back then? And then my brain
What's
like,
the key word?
And then my brain took a step back and like, oh, wait, what am I thinking?
Then they were called guitars. Yeah, I was going to say it took me until a couple years ago to like, because, you know, you've seen it so many times, you just go with it. And then I'm sitting there and I thought, wait a minute. And I'm listening closer. I knew there was synth in the score. Most of the score is a synth. Most of it. Yeah. Like, you can hear the synth, but like even like the orchestral parts, that's all synth. Like, I think he did the whole score on a synth. Oh. That guitar even, like, I would not be surprised, but I also could see, like, that's an easy bring into the studio and record. Yeah. But, like 90% of that score is synth, which, smaller budget, it's the 90s.
Makes sense.
And, yeah, but I think there's a video on YouTube, too, of, like, a high school or middle school orchestra playing the opening theme. I go, that is still perfect for, like, a full, like, orchestra to play. Like, I love the score to this movie so much. And
it's okay to say you love the movie. You very clearly love the movie.
It's the third. I don't think I need to say. I just.
I will say there is one thing that we have not talked about that we need to talk about.
Oh.
Jeff Daniels.
Yeah, let's get to Jeff Daniels. This is his best role.
Yes.
This is like his career performance.
How is this the same?
Which is the year after.
Oh my God!
It's the year. It's like, how do you go from this to Harry Dunn?
Also, he was great in Newsroom, I will say.
That's a show, though, and that's not for like another 20 years after this. Isn't it 2011?
Yeah, somewhere in there. Yeah, so almost 20 years. Yeah.
Now I got fact checked.
It's like 11 to 14 or something like that.
But when I think of like great Jeff Daniels, that's where my mind usually goes to. But,
but this is like what people point to as like, yeah, this is like his career performance.
Also, you know how we talk a lot about Paul Dano.
Yeah.
On this podcast, we also talk a lot about Jeff Daniels on this podcast.
Well, it helps because he's from Michigan.
He is, yeah, he's a Michigan boy.
Yep. So like that's part of it, and just we've seen him in a bunch of stuff, and
so
he has one of the best movie speeches I've ever heard in this, and that's at the beginning to the second main, because you got the soft music behind him, and he's like talking. It's
in the dawn.
Yep. And it's foggy, and he's talking. I like how he starts with, "They tell me that if you don't cooperate, I can shoot you." And you see a couple of them kind of look up at him, and he goes, "Oh, I'm not going to do that." Yeah. It's just, there's this calm and comfort in his voice, but he's also, because the character is a scholar, he's super well composed. And that speech about, like, we're doing something that's never been seen before in the history of, we are fighting to set other men free. And this is the biggest pushback on it that the movie needs more, but like, this is the scene.
Maybe that's what was part of the problem, was it was all front loaded with that.
Yeah, but it's such a good speech, and I could see why all but 6 of those second main boys decided to pick up a rifle. And
were they just defecting?
What happened was they signed up with the second main to fight with the second main, but some of them signed up for 4 years instead of 3, or 3 years instead of 2, something like that. Their contract ran out, like the second main does not exist anymore, and they refused to fight anymore because it's not the second main, and so they weren't like going AWOL, they were just choosing not to fight. So he gives the speech to say, like, what we're fighting for is a just cause, and we could really use you. What do we say? There were 1,000 of us when this regiment was formed in Maine. two summers ago or whatever.
Excuse me.
Whatever. There were 1,000 of us in. There are less than 300 of us now, or something like that. And of course, most of them, because there's like 120 of them. And then when he tells them at Little Round Top, where the 6 left, he's like, just let you know, like there's gonna be fighting. We could really use your help. And a couple of them stand up, and then he's like, get these guys some muskets. There are no muskets, sir. Just wait here a second. There'll be muskets soon. I go, ooh, that's such a morbid line.
No.
But he's right. Yeah, Jeff Daniels. I also love when he takes the pistol from the commander, because the guy, it actually did happen where he was going. The pistol did not fire. Well, before he does, I like the little on his mustache, and then clicks, and then just holds the sword. The pistol. You're prisoner, sir. Yeah, I'm surprised we haven't talked that much. Chamberlain is like the most famous person to come out of the battle that wasn't already pre-established. Yeah. Probably Pickett being the other one.
You know what I'm also shocked you haven't spoken about
what?
Yet? Your favorite scene.
I'm getting there. You're talking about Richard Jordan?
Yeah, of course.
What's your favorite scene?
Yeah. So, I don't know if it's my favorite. It's the most emotional. So
there we go. It's the one that makes you kind of cry.
The scene that always gets to me
Have you
is...
cried?
Watching this? No.
Okay.
I got a little emotional this time, too. So, Richard Jordan plays Louis Armistead, and he's the one that's friends with Hancock, and he's the one that puts his sword through the hat, and he gets shot right by the cannons, and he has the big thing, and it's, when you know the context, it makes it even sadder. Richard Jordan had a brain tumor, and this was his last role. He died before the movie came out. So, in that scene, his last on-screen appearance ever, when they, remember he's shot and he's struggling, and it's the whole, I'd like to speak to General Hancock. Can you tell me where he is? And he goes, I'm sorry, but the general's down. He's been hit. No, not both of us, not all of us. Like, you can just hear that hurt in his voice. And then I
also think that that's the best snapshot of directly capturing what the movie was overall trying to capture.
Yeah. Just the brother against brother thing, which they weren't like real brothers, but you get what I mean. Just making sure you know. But and then when it's can you hear me? Which of course the Chamberlain brothers were not there on that day, but to make the two narratives collide. Mm-hmm. Of course, that's like one of those. Yeah, it makes sense. And having him talk to Tom when it wasn't Tom he talked to, but then he says, "Would you tell him? Tell General Hancock that General Armistead sends his regrets. Will you tell him how sorry I am?" And you can just hear it in his voice. It's like, and he knew he was dying. That's the other thing that just kills me about that scene. Just you can hear it, and he's given it his all, and just to know that this is his last performance just adds so much weight to every scene he's in. And that's something like the movie doesn't do it. It's just knowing something, and then Richard Jordan's just a good actor.
Yeah. So
it's very sad that he passed, and that's the scene that gets me.
We also never talked about Sam Elliott, who is very good in this.
Oh yeah, he is. Yeah.
But again, I think I've said it a few times, and maybe even since you've come here, I don't buy him for a Northerner.
Yeah, he's just got that vibe.
He's from California.
He's what?
He's from California.
That makes sense.
Which I believe California was part of the
also,
Union.
Have we ever seen?
I think.
I genuinely, to the heart of my soul, believe I have never in my entire existence seen Sam Elliott without a mustache.
Does he have a mustache in Parks and Rec?
Yes.
Okay, I can't remember. I just remember
No.
Ron.
Yeah.
Ron what? Ron Dunn. Are you saying your last name, or are you done speaking?
Oh,
yes.
Sweet baby. Oh my!
Did you look him up without one?
Yes, I did.
Wait a minute. Does he have a mustache in Stars Born?
Yeah.
He does? Yeah. I don't remember what he looks like.
I've not seen
We
that,
Were
but
Soldiers,
yes.
He doesn't. I think he's clean shaven in We Were Soldiers, isn't he?
What even is this person?
See what I'm saying? And you're right, though. It does. Sam Elliott's vibe does fit playing anybody from the Civil War, realistically. So.
I mean, he's in that Yellowstone show, isn't he?
No, Sam Elliott's not in Yellowstone.
No, he's in one of the spin-offs.
Oh, he's one of the spin-offs. Okay. I love
Is Harrison Ford in another one of them spin-offs?
He is, yeah. I gotta watch those spin-offs.
There he is, Dickey.
I love Yellowstone.
There he is.
Wow.
Isn't that wild?
He's a good-looking dude.
That he looks like Peter, kind of like Peter Capaldi there.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah. Yeah, so really, it's great too.
So yeah, I looked. California was part of the Union. Okay. I think it became a state during the Civil War, something like that. I could be wrong.
Well, fun fact, really quick.
What do you think about the Zorro movie?
What's that?
Were you gonna think about the Zorro movie with Antonio Banderas?
No.
The first one.
No.
Or the second. One of the two mentions California becoming a state.
I was gonna say Sam dropped in a couple times to watch it with me.
Sam Elliott dropped in to talk about.
My Sam, Samantha.
Yeah, okay.
She just was reading a book or playing the Switch or whatever.
Well, when you live with someone, Jake, you know too, of course.
No, my wife got out of there as soon as she could.
For this, I'm just saying, when you watch something at your house, your significant other is going to pop in if they're at home. Like it's just, but she was popping in.
And she watching this, and I think they mentioned California at one point. It's like, wait, was California even a state during this? So that conversation got brought up while we were watching this too.
Starting conversations.
Yeah.
I will say, for as much as I'm pretty middle on liking the movie, but I haven't really stopped thinking about it since Wednesday. Just different aspects of it.
I finished it last night.
Congrats. I'm actually surprised. I thought you would have dropped it in the middle, well, I
kind of
pull a Jennifer Lawrence, be like, I kind of got the gist of it.
I'm not gonna lie, I genuinely I got to an hour left, and I'm like, all right, we're an hour left. I can. It flashed in my mind for a half second. I'm like, I feel like I could tell Jared I know how this ends.
Yeah, you're gonna be like, the North wins. Okay, Dickey, what you're talking about the United States, right? The Union? Yeah, the guys in the blue. I go, good job.
I will say that's one thing that I found really, really funny. When they're doing Pickett's charge and Armistead goes to go over the fence and the sword and the hat thing, and who's with me? And he's like you would expect him to run, but he's just kind of jogging, but slowly. It's just so weird.
Because it's not running; it's on the double. Which is
I don't know what that means.
It's not like a run. It's like it's you're doubling your march because there's a march speed this.
But why would
then on the doubles because if you run you use all your energy.
Yeah, but why wouldn't they tell them to get across the field as quickly as they could?
I don't know. I'm not.
I
wasn't there. Or what is it? What is it? New Jersey. What do you mean new? It's I don't know. I wasn't at the meeting.
That's also just a funny thing where it's I had these preconceived notions about things that I've read in the Revolutionary War or when you were fighting wars with muskets, having the two lines where one shoots and while they're reloading the.
Yep, you just stand there.
I didn't see a whole lot of that, and I don't know if it's because a couple or 100 years had passed since the Revolutionary War. Was
not quite 100. Not quite close.
60s, not.
And then 1770s. Yes. So not quite, but close.
I was thinking 1880s. I always do that. I don't know why.
Yeah. I that was another conversation that got brought up, is when exactly the Civil War took place. I forgot what years. It was.
61 to 64 or 65?
Yeah, that's what. Yeah.
Regardless of that, just how war had changed. If war had changed that much in that almost 100-year period, to where they wouldn't be doing that, or if they just didn't do that in the film because they couldn't.
Yeah, and I think the American Revolution is one of those that changed how warfare worked with muskets, because the British are just used to having numbers and lining up, whereas the Americans do guerrilla tactics.
I feel like at some point I learned that, and I would have a better answer if I remembered when I learned that.
Because they use guerrilla warfare, because if they couldn't match toe-to-toe with them, so they would, and it's their in this case too, their own terrain. They know the grounds. That's how they could fight that. And then of course you fast forward 90 years. Yeah, it had changed. It's all about the ground.
Especially since you were fighting someone that also knew the terrain.
Yeah.
More or less.
And you would know this now, but do you remember, Dickey, they're chanting Fredericksburg at the end at Lee, and it's like a shot. Do you understand the context of that?
No.
So, and you know now. So, and it's portrayed in Gods and Generals. At the Battle of Fredericksburg, the Confederates were the ones on the high ground behind a stone wall.
Okay.
And the Union marched across straight at him and just got obliterated. And so now that it's flipped, they're throwing it in Lee's face. And that's why that cuts to, the Fredericksburg. It cuts to Lee's face, just this hurt face. It's like, oh, yeah. Which now reminds me of that story of, you know what I'm talking about, right? So if you know, Ted Turner was married to Jane Fonda.
Oh.
She visited the set one day. And if you know her whole thing about, like, the Vietnam War and meeting with the opposing side, all that controversy, however you want to interpret it, she was like she was on like the Confederate side talking to people, and the Union side just started yelling, "Wrong side again, Jay!" Oh, that was so funny. It's from the people talking about the movie, saying like that happened like the one day she showed up. It's like, and some of those guys that are reenactors are Vietnam War vets. That's so funny. And I don't have anything against Jane Fonda. It's just a funny story. That's a really the other funny story from that documentary being the one PA. She said, "What? It's this like 20-something girl PA that was like confused about something. I think it was a PA. Like, why are we casting Koreans as?" So it's like, no, reenactors, not Korean actors.
Stop!
That's literally what happened. They said she's the nicest person, but just in that one moment, it was like,
we all say dumb shit.
We do. It's just a funny story. Yeah, there's a lot of supplemental material from real history about that. That is just it talks about so much. And what did he say at the end? He's like, if you don't agree with,
yeah, it's like
if you don't agree with that comment, you can secede from this channel.
We'll play.
Side note, I don't remember if this was on or off camera discussion, but Sam Elliott has also shaved his mustache for Justified.
Wow.
He's in Justified. Thanks for the spoiler, jerk.
Wow, Jake.
At least I didn't spoil Star Wars.
Oh, who would do that?
That was so funny.
You.
That's one of the all-time great moments on this podcast. If those of you who didn't see that episode a couple of years ago, Jake's in the middle of watching the Mandalorian, one of the Mandalorian season, and Dickey straight up says like the biggest spoiler of the season straight to him. And it had been a couple of months. Yes, you did. It's just like so-and-so, the Mandalorian. And Jake's like, thanks.
It had been like a couple years because the season...
Or something.
It had been a couple of years since the season came out.
Yeah, you managed to go 2 years. You couldn't last.
Well, I didn't know you hadn't seen it because who in their mothers doesn't know that?
You see, you still.
Why can't I say it?
Because
it's been out for so long.
It's just funnier to keep it from me to make. This should prepare you for future life to not spoil things for people. You jerk.
Spoiler alert: Luke's in the Mandalorian.
Kinda.
Yeah. What do you mean, kinda? He walks in at the end.
I guarantee you,
not
Mark
the
Hamill
end.
does not look like that anymore.
No.
The whole purpose.
Anyway.
Star Wars again.
Yep.
It always comes back to Star Wars. Anything else about?
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Just I need to click off this picture. It's staring into my soul, making me feel some kind of ways.
Sam Elliott does have. I do like his little speech about him like predicting how the battle will go. He goes, "And we'll fight valiantly, and we butchered valiantly." I like that line delivery. I like the delivery of. There's the moment of Longstreet is gonna ride. It's like the Union Army's coming. I'm gonna go meet him because he's upset, and he starts riding, and the one guy gets knocked off his horse, and he gets up. He goes, "How are you, TJ?" He says like, "I'm average, sir," or something. "I'm fine, sir." Then he goes, "Don't worry, the Lord come in his own good time." Yeah, a lot of people, even real history, they said like they think Tom Berenger's a little bland in the way, but I actually, his face when the charge is taking place and the way he just tries to compose himself, I think is really good. It's this hurtful face of like he knows what's going to happen, and so when Pickett's like, "Sir, give me the order," and he can't even say it, and then he goes, "I'm waiting on the order." He just that little wave. I actually really like it, and I think he's.
I thought he did a decent enough job in this.
It's the beard, man.
It is the beard.
And that big cowboy hat that everyone says like, yeah, that's not historically accurate. He just wanted that.
They had to balance the beard.
You gotta have a lot going on either side of your face.
Apparently, he like started a restaurant called Longstreet's because he liked playing the character so much.
Really?
And it's still in operation or something.
I thought you actually meant like Longstreet himself.
No. No. We're talking about Tom Berenger. And then we did talk about Stephen Lang, but he's so much fun as Pickett. Mm-hmm. Like when he mentioned Sally and getting the cologne off a dead Frenchman. Like whenever he's talking, and then also there's the right before the charge, he's on his horse, and here's one of my other favorite lines. Always he's "Damnation, huh?" That always gets me. And then when Armistead sticks his sword through his hat, and he goes, "That's the style, Lou! That's the style!" Then right before his horse knocks him off, which was not planned, the horse got spooked by the guns. He's like, "Break 'em, Lou!" And then, of course, he's on the ground. He asks, "Give me my glasses. Give me the glasses. What's happening to my boys? What's happening to my boys?" Like, we laugh because it's really good. And then you have the most, like, gutting shot reaction to the whole thing. And that's the, "General Pickett, sir, you must look to your division." And he just, that big sweeping close.
Yeah, yeah.
So good. It's just, "General Lee, I have no division." And then that's that big shot back to Lee, the big timpani, boom, and then just Lee just looks down.
It's interesting because it speaks to how different warfare was, where the generals were so separated from what was actually happening that...
They're more separated now.
Yeah.
But like then, and that's another Lee part, that the connection where he said, like, "I love the Army, but to be a general, you have to just kind of have what you love be destroyed," or however he said it. Like, that's such a good line. Like, there's so many good little things in the movie too. And of course, we have to bring up Fremantle to let us know he's British. He's wearing a bright red uniform with a cup of tea and that mustache. And it's like, when the Fremantle, what do real history say? He's kind of like the Forrest Gump of the Civil War, because he is not there officially. He was a spectator, just on his own. He broke through the blockade, went through Texas, and he like went by Vicksburg during the siege, and he saw Gettysburg. He like saw all these big, like, was always present at these big happenings in the war. But
he does have one of the most interesting interactions in the whole film.
Is that the Longstreet one you're talking about, or is that the...
Yeah.
The one with Armistead. The one before the charge, where Armistead's saying, "This guy's from this area and this guy's from this area. They're all Virginians." That part? Or are you talking the
No,
Longstreet?
I was talking about your country's not going to support us. They've already done away with slavery. Why would they support our cause?
Yeah.
We've been talking about it not pushing back enough. I think Longstreet was their primary attempt to push back on it, but Martin Sheen is just such a bigger presence that I think it's hard to overpower that.
Yeah. Just laughing at the history buff's reaction to it is like, of course, the one British guy in this movie has a cup of tea and a bright red shirt.
Yeah, I know.
But then they said, like, if he, which it's historically inaccurate to say he's the eyes and ears of the Queen, but his uniform would have been like gray or like a bluish gray, and they said that would have confused people.
Yeah.
So that decision makes sense. Oh yeah, another little tidbit about Gods and Generals, because we've mentioned Harrison the Spy, who I don't think they had proof he was an actor or did Shakespeare, but like it's just a character. But he's in Gods and Generals the movie, and there's like a scene in the extended, because there's the director's cut of that too, where it's like he and John Wilkes Booth are like backstage or something. It is one of the weirdest things. Because John Wilkes Booth was an actor, and it's like pre-war or like the beginning of the war, and it's like it's shoehorned in there. It's like,
that's funny.
Why? It's the weirdest thing. Also, who was it? Was it Billy Campbell? When they kept saying, when Real History kept saying like, "Oh yeah, and the Rocketeers in this movie," and he just kept saying it. Is it Billy Campbell?
If he is a year or a couple years older than me, he would be of that age to really like that movie.
I've never seen it. Remember I told you what I always got it mixed up with? The Astronaut Farmer. With Billy Bob Thornton. You know what I'm talking about?
Not a clue.
You've never heard of The Astronaut Farmer from the early 2000s?
You are missing
Where he like builds a rocket in his barn.
Oh my.
or something like that. I got that mixed up with The Rocketeer. So, which I feel like it's a Joe Johnston movie. Either Joe Johnston or like Phil Alden Robinson, one of those two. I can't remember.
Isn't that from like 2000?
The Rocketeer?
No.
Okay.
The Astronaut Farm.
That's got to be like 05, somewhere in there.
I thought I was going to say 2003. But isn't there like another one where they're building rockets in farm side? Like
06 is The Astronaut Farmer.
October Sky or something like that?
Yeah, but that's a true story about like them wanting to go into rocketry. Breaking out of Jakey G breaking out of his small town to become a rocket scientist. It's very good.
I've never seen that one.
What year is The Rocketeer? Ooh, that rhymed.
It feels like it.
91.
Oh. I was going to say 88.
So a couple years before Gettysburg, and it's Joe Johnston, who I believe directed the first Captain America movie.
Oh.
He's got a very
Captain
cheesy
America
style,
movie.
so it fits perfect. Yeah, it's the most fun one.
It is the most fun. It's so dumb. I love it.
Yeah. Also, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention C. Thomas Howell's giant sideburns that become a beard. It's wonderful. I like C. Thomas Howell. You know C. Thomas Howell, right?
I think I've heard.
Yeah, you probably see him. It's not the big thing that I knew him from was the Outsiders movie.
Oh, yeah.
Adaptation. Okay. He's Pony Boy.
Oh.
He's also in the original Red Dawn. And Soul Man.
I'm Soul Man.
Dickey looks like he's losing energy.
You should. I know. It just said look up what Soul Man is, and you want to know one of the most dated, worst. Like, just look up what it's about. You'll be like, oh. We'll do it after we stop.
Yeah.
I've never seen it, but I've heard quite a horrible tale.
Interesting.
Yeah, but I do like C. Thomas Howell. So that I just had to mention him. I think that wraps up this giant episode. Else? Yeah, just.
Hey, we still only
everything.
talked for half of the amount of time that the movie actually is.
It's a long movie.
Yeah.
It's the longest movie I've seen in a very, 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 very long time.
That's not true.
What's longer than this that you've seen?
I
This might be the longest movie you've ever seen.
I don't know about
Godfather
Titanic.
Collection. That's a singular. That's edited to be a singular
but it wasn't
movie.
edited together that way.
He also didn't finish, so he's not watched it.
It's fair.
It
He's
also
watched most of it.
But it wasn't edited that way to premiere in front of like a studio.
It counts.
an audience.
It counts as a long movie, but also you didn't finish, so it doesn't count.
Also, well, technically he finished the first two. He didn't finish the third.
Yeah, he had like an hour left.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Anything else about Gettysburg?
Yeah, just it's a movie that is made for a specific crowd. I think it's very important.
Apparently,
I think
people named Jared.
Yep.
Apparently,
It
because
brings
Jared
up,
from Real History really loves it.
Yep. It brings up a lot of interesting conversations. It has plenty of flaws, but I think there's a lot more good things and a lot more things that will continue to be important and age well. It's aged well in a lot of areas because it doesn't rely on the bad-looking CG that a lot of things do. And I think, it preserves a certain perspective that is important to remember. Again, plenty of stuff to talk about that it doesn't do well. But I just think it creates conversations, and that's the most important thing. And if you don't like it, that's fine. It's made for history buffs, Civil War buffs. That's like it.
I am sorry for you that it's your third favorite movie of all time, but like I feel like it's one that you have to defend it being.
That's just the way it is.
I mean,
I knew that. Watch it this
I
time.
defend that as well. Whatever my third favorite. I don't know
It's not the same though when you're talking about what would.
His third was Raiders, I think.
Yeah, or whatever one you're talking about.
Yours don't really need to be defended.
Your defense is, why would you put such a popular movie on that or whatever it is? His is more, why are you why is Confederate propaganda on your
and
the conversation? Yes, you're right, but the conversation is not the same.
Yeah. And it's another one where on the surface you can make the claim, but when you go layers deeper, it's like, okay, it's not that. But it's not like a one sentence thing. It takes a while.
But it isn't that.
You shouldn't have to sum up.
You kind of have to when it's something tied to the Civil War, which is still a big thing.
I feel like that's something where you have to have something to say about it. It's not just I I really, really like this sort of thing.
And when we get to number 1, it's not the same as this, but there's a certain thing of like, I have to explain why, because without knowing what it is, you could be interpreted the wrong way. So it's like, I have to explain what this is. Not as in-depth as this, but there is like okay, you understand what this is. So we'll get there in a couple weeks.
Yeah, we'll get there exactly in a couple weeks.
And it's also a war movie, but it's not as long as this. But
actually, I have no clue what it's even about.
Dickey's like, thank God.
Yeah. No more 4-hour and 20-minute movies.
I was that close to thinking, should I put Until the End of the World on my list to make Dickey watch a 5-hour movie? 5 hours, that's similar to
What's the
Wings
other
of
one you watched a couple of days ago? Or not a couple
Are you talking about The Sorrow and the Pity?
No, I was talking about like Human Condition or something.
That was like a year or two ago.
That's
it's technically 3 movies, but they're edited together like one for a certain version, and that's about 9 hours.
Or you could have put the OJ documentary on there. That was
7 hours.
I
technically a
do
movie.
Really want to watch that.
It's really good.
And then you watch the Cuba Gooding Jr. version of that, and it's not so good.
Anyway, for us and our favorites, thank you for listening to today. And if you want to check out Jared's next 2 favorite movies of all time.
Well, just the first. We'll go one by one.
One by one. Yeah, just regardless, tune in next week and tune in the week after. But I just until you do that.
Okay. Well, no. When we say that, it's usually after, isn't it? I say this, and then we say what's next.
I was giving you a little tease. I was teasing.
Jared, just say the socials.
Where can they follow?
There we go.
We want to watch the gay. Let's do
You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, The Funny, TikTok, and X. And then you can listen to us on Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio. And hey, if it's YouTube, like, subscribe, comment, ring our bell. Make sure you like us and rate us on all those apps. And check out our groovy website.
Absolutely. So, yes, thank you for staying tuned up until Jared's 3rd. Now we're on to Jared's number 2.
He's going to tell that joke every time that we get to number 2.
Jared, what is your number 2?
Number 2 is Casablanca. Classic Hollywood, big one.
What a heavy hitter. Like, arguably more popular than his picks.
I haven't seen Casablanca in a minute.
It's been a while for me. I've seen it multiple times, but we'll get into that next week.
All right, I'm excited. Until then, thanks, guys, for listening. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.